A guy spends 30 years teaching in New York City public schools. He wins City Teacher of the Year 3 times. He wins New York State Teacher of the Year, and then he quits. On the op ed page of the Wall Street Journal, the headline is basic: I quit, I think. His reason: he says he can no longer keep hurting kids. His name was John Taylor Gatto, and he spent the rest of his life arguing that the thing we call school was never really about education at all. So, is he onto something real, or did he just talk himself into a corner? I read the three big books to find out, and I think every one of them belongs on yourself, especially if you're a parent watching your own kid go through it, quietly having second thoughts about the whole education machine. Let me show you why. For quick context, because this is what gives the whole critique its teeth, Gato was an outsider lobbying rocks at a system he never touched. He was inside it for 3 decades in Manhattan classrooms, and he was good at it. Good enough to be named the best in the state. That is the whole hook of his work. The critique does not come from a libertarian think tank. It comes from a celebrated teacher who looked at his own success and decided it was built on something rotten. After he walked away around 1991, he wrote a lot. The three books that matter most are Dumbing Us Down in 1992, Underground History of American Education around 2000, and Weapons of Mass Instruction in 2008. He kept speaking and writing until he died in 2018. Each book does a different job, so I'll take them one at a time. Easiest entry point first. Starting with Dumping Us Down, if you read one Gatto book, start here. It is short, it is mostly speeches he gave, including the one he delivered when he accepted that Teacher of the Year award. Imagine standing up to collect the prize and using the speech to say the prize is meaningless. The centerpiece is an essay called The 7 Lesson School Teacher. His argument: forget the official subjects for a second. Every school, no matter the curriculum, teaches 7 hidden lessons just through how it runs. He lists them roughly like this: 1. Confusion. Knowledge gets chopped into disconnected subjects with bells in between, so nothing ever connects into meaning. 2. Class position. You learn to stay in the number assigned to you. 3. Indifference. The bell teaches you that nothing you're doing matters enough to finish. 4. Emotional dependency. Stars, grades, and approval teaches you to wait for an authority to tell you how to feel. 5. Intellectual dependency. You learn to wait to be told what to think and what is worth knowing. 6. Provisional self esteem. Your sense of worth gets handed to you by an evaluator. And 7. You can't really hide. Constant surveillance teaches you that privacy and solitude are not allowed. His point is that these lessons are not a bug, they are the actual curriculum. The history and the math are almost a cover story. What this really trains is compliance. Or, in his words, the truth is that schools don't really teach anything except how to obey orders. Whether or not you buy the full theory, this is the part that hits anyone who sat in a classroom and felt the day chopped into meaningless pieces by a bell. It rings true before you have ever decided if it is correct. And he never lets you forget where the critique comes from. His line: School is like starting life with a 12-year sentence, in bad habits are the only curriculum truly learned. I did school and win awards doing it. I should know. Next up is the underground history of American education. This is the deep end. It is huge, it is dense, and it is Garo basically goes from here is what school feels like to here is who built it this way and why. His thesis, Modern Compulsory Schooling in America, was engineered. He traces it back to the Prussian model of state education, then to American industrialists and the big foundation money of the Carnegie and Rockefeller era. The claim is that mass schooling was designed to produce a manageable population, reliable workers, predictable consumers who not make trouble. He leans hard on a figure named Alexander English, an education theorist from a century ago. Gatto reads English as basically admitting the real functions of school out loud to adapt kids to authority, to sort them into social roles, to integrate them into conformity, not to create free, dangerous, independent minds. It is worth knowing that Garo puts this whole book online for free, so you can go verify the wild parts yourself, which I totally recommend. Now, here is where I have to be honest. This is the most powerful and the most contested book of the three. When Gatto sticks to documented design choices, it is fascinating. When he stitches it all into one grand intention, critics push back hard. The line between the system produces this outcome and powerful people sat in a room and planned this outcome is exactly where a lot of readers get off the train. Keep that tension in your head while you read it. The third book is Weapons of Mass Instruction. This one is like a bridge between the other two, more readable than the underground history, more developed than Dumping Us Down. If this if book is the evidence and the small book is the feeling, this is the argument cleaned up for a general reader. It also contains his most shared piece, the essay Against School, which started as a magazine article. That essay is probably how most people meet Gatto today. So the book is the natural next step. The hopeful half is here too. Gatto points at people who became brilliant without the standard schooling track, and he pushes an idea he called open source learning. Real apprenticeship, time alone, hard responsibility given early, learning pulled from the actual world instead of from a worksheet. This is the part that lands with a homeschooling and unschooling crowd, and it is the closest he gets to a prescription instead of a diagnosis. Strip it all back, and Cato is making one distinction over and over. Schooling is not education. He draws the line in one sentence. When you take the free will out of education, that turns it into schooling. Schooling is the institutional process, bells, grades, permission slips, sorting. Education is what actually happens when a mind grows curiosity, mastery, character, the slow building of a self. His claim is that we swapped one for the other and then we forgot about it. We started measuring how much someone was schooled and calling it how educated they are. And to Gatto, those can be almost opposites. You can be heavily schooled and barely educated. You can be barely schooled and deeply educated. Once you have heard that distinction, it is genuinely hard to unhear. That is the real reason people keep handing these books to each other. I'm not going to just sell you these books. Here's where I think he's the weakest. One, the grand design argument can slide into conspiracy. Outcomes are easier to prove than intentions, and Gatto sometimes treats a result as if it were a plan. Read him with a skeptical eye. Two, he's selective. He brings the evidence that fits and tends to skip the counterexamples, especially the cases where public schooling genuinely opened doors that nothing else would have. Three, his solutions assume resources, self directed learning, apprenticeship, a parent with time. That is a real option for some families and a total fantasy for others. The kids who depend most on public institutions are exactly the ones his model can leave behind, and he does not fully wrestle with this whole idea. Four, he repeats himself and the tone runs hot. Across three books, you will hit the same beats more than once. And yet, even people who disagree with his history tend to admit the lived stuff is accurate. The boredom is real, the fragmentation is real, the training in compliance is real. He may be wrong about who designed the building and still right about what it feels like to live in it. So the verdict, don't read these books as a manual. Gatto will not tell you exactly what to do. He will permanently change how you see a building you have walked past your whole life. Where to start? I would starting with Dumping Us Down if you want the fast emotional entry, Against School, and then Weapons of Mass Instruction if you want to get the clean argument. Save the underground history for when you are hooked and ready to argue within the author himself. If this is the kind of book that rewires how you look at things, that is exactly the kind I track and talk about over leadself.app. Tell me in the comments, were you school or were you educated?